So it's finally here. I've gotten my hands on a sample of the much anticipated Comète from Chanel. If you know my channel, I'm quite a big fan of Chanel. I would say in terms of my favorite brands, maybe Frederic Malle just edges it out, as I feel that those fragrances generally are a bit more modern and a bit more me. But I think maybe in terms of brands I respect, the artistry and the quality, I think Chanel is probably number one. I can remember when I was more into like Comme des Garçons and more kind of like avant-garde fragrances, I would often see people make this statement: Chanel Les Exclusifs are just the top of the fragrance mountain. And I had tried them. I think it was even when the EDTs were what was available. And I just kind of shrugged my shoulders, kind of went meh. But now I fully drink the Kool-Aid and just adoring the Chanel Les Exclusifs range and thinking they're just really top quality and just some of the best smelling fragrances out there. So I'm very excited for a new release, as they only come once every few years. Initial reviews and notes had me kind of temper my expectations, as it sounds like the kind of genre that's not really going to wow anybody. And I've been wearing it all day today, and I wore it last night, so I've gotten a good sense of the fragrance. And in short, I'll say I like it a lot, but it's not a huge wow. I don't love it. It's not the kind of thing that I feel I must immediately go out and buy. But I think it's very nice and it's very well done. Yeah, so opening, beautiful. You do get the cherry note. It's nothing obvious. It's not like the cherry fruit. Again, I'm not sure any of us really know what cherry blossom smells like, but it's this sort of imagination of what we think of as a cherry smell in sort of a pale floral form. And that's what I get. I imagine sort of a light pinkness to this scent. It's really quite strong, especially up front. It's got like a wateriness, sort of a soapiness. It lists aldehydes, but it's not particularly aldehydic, although I suppose it's probably adding some of that freshness, some of that zing. It does also have sort of a clean laundry vibe to it a little bit. As I suspected, we're kind of seeing a bit of a mini trend with the release of Frederic Malle's Acne Studios and this, and then before that, the Dior New Look, which was maybe the least laundry of them, but similarly this kind of clean, white, musky fragrance for summer. So cherry blossom aldehydes. It smells very Chanel. That's another thing I should say right away. It's very recognizably Chanel DNA with the iris, the sort of makeup vibe. It's not powdery. It reminds me more of like a cream, like a very nice, like expensive, like body cream kind of smell. That might be damning with faint praise to some. Something this expensive maybe shouldn't smell like a body product, but it's maybe like the nicest version of that. This actually just struck me now, but I think it's pretty accurate that it's not far off from Paris Venice from the Les Eaux collection, but it does smell a lot richer, a lot denser than that. That's another thought I had as I wore it, that this might feel like it belongs more in a lower end collection. Does it really live up to the Les Exclusifs heritage and price point? In some ways it does, in some ways it doesn't. I think just by nature of the genre, it's not the kind like Liliane is like a big, deep, thick, rich thing. It's the kind of thing that just really makes you go, wow. Whereas this just genre of scent is always going to be pleasant. But I do think after wearing it all day, the longevity, the kind of subtle complexity, it's not a very complex fragrance, but it's faceted. It's not one note or droning in the way that maybe like a cheaper body spray might be. And it's not as light and airy as the Les Eaux are. So what else can I say about it? In terms of other Les Exclusifs, I thought of Beige as maybe something like a sister to this. Beige, if I remember correctly, is a bit sweeter. It has kind of a honeyed note, but I believe it shares heliotrope. So it's not like an unprecedented kind of way to go. I think we have kind of subgenres within the Les Exclusifs We've got the old ones, the ones that have been around for a long time and that were just kind of packaged into the Les Exclusifs. We've got the kind of very classic Chanel irisy, powdery, and that's kind of where this falls. And then we've got like the rich, we've got Coromandel, we've got Le Lion. But it also doesn't smell redundant to me either. It does smell like it adds something new to the line. So what else can I say about it? This came up in another video, and so I pulled it out here. I keep thinking of Leur Promise with a few recent releases. This is a Cartier fragrance by Mathieu Laurent. And I think they list it as sandalwood, but there's a musk that I got in that Frederic Malle Acne Studios that I also get in Comète that reminds me of the sandalwood, what they're calling sandalwood in this, which is what I would call like soapy sandalwood. It's sort of got this creamy, woody facet. It's definitely nothing to do with like the Le Labo Santal, that kind of synthetic sandalwood, but I suspect this is also a synthetic musk that's maybe used to create a sandalwood accord. Yeah, this is fresher and lighter. But yeah, to me, there's like a almost nutty creaminess in the musks that is just my personal experience that I first really noticed in Leur Promise, and now I've since noticed in Iris Poudre, and I've noticed it in Acne Studios, and I've noticed it in Comète. Yeah, actually smelling these back to back is very informative. They're not massively different. Next to this, Leur Promise is fresher, greener, and this is a little richer and a little sweeter. Again, I'm not suggesting you go out and buy Leur Promise instead of Comète. It just came to mind that treatment of kind of musky base just keeps making me think of this fragrance, so I wanted to pull it out while talking about Comète. Interesting, in comparison, it's sweeter, but on its own, I wouldn't call this necessarily a sweet fragrance. It has a warm, kind of cozy, very slightly vanillic, nothing that reads overtly as vanilla, but you can feel it adding to the sense of kind of warmth and coziness in the musk. I will say, of course, it leads on the feminine side. There are those who might think all the Chanels lean on the feminine side. Most of us really into perfume really don't care about gender designation, myself included. I think once you get over that hurdle and get so deeply into smell, you really are able to interpret smells as smells and kind of shed some of the baggage you might have had previously. But I will say this does, again, that kind of lotiony, almondy, warm, musky smell does lean more towards the feminine side. I think as it gets to the dry down several hours later, it becomes more middle, kind of unisex, because it's more of just like a clean, soapy, musky dry down. So it sort of sheds some of those maybe more feminine leaning top notes. I will say it smells very familiar. Like, I feel like I've smelled this before, and it's the kind of smell that had someone put it in my nose, I would instantly say, oh, that's a Chanel. That's definitely a Chanel. So again, not mind-blowing, but I am impressed with the way it wears. I thought at first maybe I hadn't sprayed enough. I did a few shy sprays of the sample, but throughout the day, really I was getting these like nice wafts of musk. If you like kind of a musky fragrance, again, it doesn't go totally clean laundry. It's not synthetic or harsh in any way. It's very, very cozy, while still smelling, kind of fresh and light. I suppose that's very indicative of heliotrope fragrances. It's almost like you're just laying on this like powdery, soft white clouds. I will say along with that, sorry, smelling around, that to me, Comète, it's not as aggressive as a Comète. It's very pillowy. Maybe if you imagine, again, just the trail, it's not quite sparkling as you might think with stars. So it's an interesting name. But yeah, longevity is fantastic. Really goes all day. It's not in your face because it has such a soft texture. I think that's what I was going to say about it. The texture is really extraordinary and well calibrated and nice. Now, as I said, I like it a lot. It's not my favorite. I don't think we can expect every release to be mind-blowing and mind-altering. I think it does live up to the quality standard of Chanel for sure. But I probably won't be in a big hurry to buy it, although I do think I will add it to my collection eventually. I'm burning this strawberry candle just as an aside. I bought recently because they had a little deal and a little kind of in-store party. It's in the same genre, although they don't smell this alike, but it doesn't really smell like strawberry. It smells more like jasmine. It's kind of a nice floral spring summer fragrance. And I pulled this out, which I got very kindly from a Nordstrom SA. Even though all I bought was a Les Eaux, I kind of chatted with him a little bit about what a fan I was of Chanel and the Les Exclusifs, and he gave me this booklet, which has a little picture and little descriptions of each of the Les Exclusifs. So super beautiful. Really, really happy. That was really nice of him. I'll definitely go back to purchase from that guy from the Nordstrom in Manhattan, their big flagship store. So it's kind of all I have to say about it. I think there's not a lot of surprises. I think it smells kind of what I had a vision of in my head. It actually smells a little better. I think I had tempered my expectations, and I was a little pleasantly surprised, even if, again, like I said, I don't think it's a wow fragrance, and I don't think it's going to be one of my favorites from the collection. I remember what I was searching for earlier. So I was going to say, in comparison to Frederic Malle Acne Studios, they are different. They're by no means a dupe or copying one another. It's more just kind of an interesting trend that things of a similar genre, you can share a genre without being a copy. To me, I prefer the Chanel. I would buy the Chanel first. I would put down that kind of money for this before I would for Acne Studios. By comparison, I think the Acne Studios does smell younger and it smells more modern, but it also kind of, as a function of those two qualities, smells a bit cheaper to me as well, a little more synthetic. This smells very luxurious, even if it is sort of luxurious lotion. Getting a lot of almondy. I think another reviewer said this, so I can't take credit, but mentioned how it's a maybe Polish homage to Guerlain once again, like Le Lion supposedly was maybe a little nod to Shalimar, although not smelling like Shalimar, and maybe shares enough similarities to be a wink. This does remind a little bit of the pillowy, tonka, almondy Guerlainade. Being a Chanel fanboy, I prefer this because I find that the Guerlain tend to be more a little gooey and cozy. I just imagine the kind of person who wears that as just being like just a really soft, cozy person, always wearing sweaters that go past their hands. And I kind of prefer the, cold, unapproachable mystique of the Chanel person, just as a character, just as, a narrative that speaks to me. So I like this better than something from Guerlain. But yeah, it really reminds me most of maybe Beige or Paris Venice, just to get you in the ballpark of what other Chanel fragrances this might smell like. So a good release, maybe not a great release. Like with Acne Studios, really depends just how you feel about this genre. If this isn't your genre, this probably isn't the one to convert you. But if you like this genre of sort of musky, clean, almondy, lotiony smells, this is probably one of the best, or at least among the better executions of that smell. So a very good fragrance. I'm super happy to finally have tried it. Been waiting a long time. And I'll probably pick it up eventually. But next on my list, unfortunately, is to hoard as many X-rays as I possibly can. And I might do a video about that if they really are discontinued. I don't like to spread rumors. And as most of these things always start and remain rumors until it's too late, I'm not sure I want to kind of stoke the flames of that. But on my personal shopping list right now is X-rays, X-rays, X-rays. And maybe I'll pick up Comète maybe next spring, maybe going into next spring next year. So that's all for now. Get out there and try Comète. It's a good one, especially if you like lotiony, musky, floral fragrances.